For more on this story now, our Arise News foreign affairs analyst Marco Vicenzino joins me. Marco, who did this?
Basically, the clear aim is to destabilize the Turkish nation and continue dividing Turkish society. Now, there'll be a lot of finger pointing. For example, on one part, you'll have, on the Kurdish side, you'll have finger pointing at the government, saying that it's the deep state. And by the deep state, I mean the sort of extreme nationalist elements in collusion with the state. They'll say if it's not directly them, it's indirectly them, because they're not doing a good enough job at protecting ethnic Kurds. And they'll point to the attack in July of 2015 in Suruç, the border town, in which ISIS suicide bombers had gone in. So far, it seems also that there may have been 2 suicide bombers, and if it's suicide bombers, it's in the traditional jihadist and ISIS way of doing things. So if that's proven, if there are suicide bombers, it's more than likely to be ISIS elements, just as it was done in July in 2015 in the border town of Suruç.
Where does this leave the country? Teetering on the edge of much worse? This is already the worst atrocity in its history. So you've got, Islamic State in there, the Kurds, the Turkish state.
Sure.
Is there going to be an implosion?
This is a watershed moment in modern Turkish history. This is actually probably the largest attack. And Suruç was about slightly above 60. So far, the numbers seem at 86 and even more. And in Suruç was a border town. This strikes at the heart of Turkey. This is in Ankara, the nation's capital, at an important center by the train station. And so the clear aim, once again, being to destabilize Turkey. And the immediate steps that need to be taken is to defuse it. For example, the Turkish government announced 3 days of national mourning. The PKK, for its part, ceased all offensive operations. So there's a decision. When the bombings in Suruç in July of 2015, it had the effect whereby it divided things and made things worse. It ended the ceasefire between the PKK and the government. This time around, I think if leadership on all sides and all elements of Turkish society and ordinary Turkish citizens prevent themselves from being divided, because that's the aim, and they need to unite. Obviously, there are many differences. Turkey is a mosaic of a country, different ethnic groups. But what happens is that they'll allow outsiders or extremists internally or extremists externally to divide them or to unite as a nation.
It seems to me that Turkey is in the middle of a perfect storm. There's all this going on, not to mention 2 million Syrian refugees coming through the country. Is it likely that it can, as you say, unite, calm and move forward after such an atrocity?
That's a challenge for the leadership on all sides, and also a challenge for ordinary citizens. Will they allow themselves to be divided? And when you use the word perfect storm, it's not just a perfect storm within Turkey's borders. A perfect storm is brewing beyond Turkey's borders, a regional perfect storm. Everything you had just mentioned, what I would add to it is the fact that also, for example, in Syria in recent days, we had the new element of Russian jet fighters and Russian participation in the Syrian war. And there's also been violations of Turkish airspace. So when you see this internal conflict brewing, the elements from Syria and its spillover into Turkey, you also have from powers from now beyond the region. They're going to further complicate the situation.
Yes, when you talk about beyond the region, what does this mean for the world, if you like? I mean, Turkey is at the centre of something huge at the moment with a migrant crisis and now this. So what impact does it have on the rest of the world?
International stability and international security are at stake. And I agree, the spillover from Turkey just beyond the Middle East, and one example, as you mentioned, is the refugee crisis in Europe. But also you can have not just refugees going, is you can have the spread of, for another example, being extremist elements working their ways to places beyond Turkey and into Europe. And also if you have an engulfment, a regional conflict that goes just beyond the Levant, spreads to the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, into areas in the southern fields of Turkey, of Iraq, for example, that are very much resource rich, particularly in oil. So if this conflict spreads, this regional perfect storm, that'll have an impact on international markets in oil, on not just international markets in terms of the oil market, but markets beyond. This is not something, it's direct consequences and the indirect ones. And particularly, you have a world that's still in certain parts in economic crisis. But for example, in Turkey, the situation, you have a political division, economic downturn, and the security problem. And the impact throughout the region and beyond is serious. So there's direct consequences and indirect consequences.
Marco, thank you. Marco Vicenzino, our foreign affairs analyst, keeping us up to date with the situation in Turkey and beyond.